what you can do. Fill me in.
End of the line.
Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to show you the best build I managed to create for Verso. It's a fully DPS focused build that can one-shot pretty much all enemies during your first turn. The build focuses on Verso and his Endbringer skill, which is his highest single target damage skill. We are using all the possible damage buffs and Pictos we can in order to boost his damage on the first turn, making it possible to deal tens of millions of damage with just one skill use, one-shotting any enemy. The build can also deal a ton of AoE damage if necessary, using the Phantom Stars skill twice in a row and clear almost any battle in one turn. For the other party members, we are using Sciel for her Fortune's Fury and Intervention skills, and Maelle is there just as another support unit, but you can replace her with whoever you want. We are using the Auto Death plus Breaking Death plus Burning Death combo on Sciel in order to break enemies on our first turn and also burn them in order to get the damage boost from the Burn Affinity Pictos. We are using the Breaking Attack plus Exposing Attack plus Marking Break combo on Maelle in order to break all enemies and apply Defenseless plus Mark on them, which will give us a huge damage increase. Before we can get started, you will need a few key items to make this build work as follows. The Chevalam weapon for Verso. This weapon can be obtained from the Crimson Forest map by defeating the final boss. This weapon is crucial for pretty much any Verso build because it allows you to start with S rank on turn 1 and you also get a damage increase between 20% and 100% with each turn passing. The Painted Power Pictos, which is crucial for any build and which is automatically obtained after defeating the Paintress. The Cheater Pictos, which is crucial for any build and which can be obtained by defeating the Sprung boss. The First Strike Pictos, to ensure you always go first with your team. This can be obtained in the Stonewave Cliff map. The Auto Death Pictos, which can be obtained from the Merchant in the Yellow Harvest map. The Breaking Death Pictos, which can be obtained from the Thunder Évêque in the Continent map. The Marking Break Pictos, which can be obtained from the Merchant in the Endless Night Sanctuary map. The Exposing Attack Pictos, which can be obtained from the Merchant in the Flying Waters map. The Energizing Start Pictos, which you will need at least 3 of. This can be obtained on the beach behind the Gestural Village, in Ancient Sanctuary, in Eski's Nest, and in the Forgotten Battlefield. The Energizing Turn Pictos, which can be obtained by defeating the Siren boss. The Second Chance Pictos, which you automatically get after defeating Renoir the first time. And the Survivor Pictos, which can be obtained from the Merchant in Monaco Station. Besides these key items, your damage output will depend on how many damage increase Pictos you have equipped on Verso. I recommend getting the following Pictos to maximize your damage. At Death's Door for 50% more damage, Augmented First Strike for 50% more damage on the first hit, Burn Affinity for 25% increased damage, Confident Fighter for 30% more damage, First Offensive for 50% more damage on the first hit, Glass Cannon for 25% more damage, Greater Defenseless for 15% more damage from the Defenseless debuff, Greater Powerful for 15% more damage from the Powerful buff, Immaculate for 30% more damage, Inverted Affinity for 50% more damage, Roulette for a potential 200% damage increase on each hit, Stay Marked for a 50% chance of reapplying mark resulting in more damage, Stun Boost for 30% more damage, Teamwork for 10% more damage, and Warming Up for 5% more damage after each turn, up to 25%. You don't need all of these, but the more you have, the more damage you will deal. Another key element for this build is your party order. You want to make sure that Verso goes last and the order for your other party members is irrelevant. In order to control your party order, make sure Verso does not have the First Strike Pictos equipped, while your other 2 party members have it equipped. This will ensure that no matter what their speed is, Verso will always go last. Let's take a look at each character and see what weapon, Pictos and skills they have equipped. When it comes to Sciel, she will act as a supporting character, meaning her weapon is not that relevant and she doesn't need any damage increase Pictos. Still, if you want the best possible weapon on her as a supporting unit, you should use Litheson, which can be obtained from Lumiere during Act 3. by defeating one of the groups of Lumiere citizens that is roaming around the city. This weapon will pretty much guarantee that the enemies always have greater slow on them and that your party always has greater speed on them, which can be useful in case you can't one-shot on the first turn. When it comes to skills, the only two skills you will need are Fortune's Fury and Intervention, which allow you to give Verso double damage and make him take his turn immediately when needed. You should also equip Dark Cleansing, which is a very useful support skill that passes on buffs from a character to another and costs 0 AP. You can use this in combination with the Lethessan weapon to apply greater rush to your team all the time at 0 cost. For her active Lumina, you want the following: Auto Death, Breaking Death, Burning Death, Cheater or Faster Than Strong, Energizing Death, Energizing Start, at least 3 of these, Energizing Turn, First Strike and Second Chance. That's a total of 169 Lumina points required. If you have leftover Lumina points, feel free to add any other Lumina you want. When it comes to her attributes, they are pretty much irrelevant, but you should at least max out health and speed, just in case the fight goes longer than expected. Moving on to Maelle, which acts as our second support character, while also being able to deal a good amount of damage. For the weapon, it's not extremely important, but you can either use Barrier Breaker for dealing with shielded enemies, or Duenum for more AP support for your team. When it comes to the 3 equipped Pictos, use whatever you want. When it comes to skills, they are pretty much irrelevant here, but you should have her more useful and hard-hitting skills equipped, just in case things go wrong. You should have Phantom Strike, Guard Down and Stendhal. The rest are personal preference. For her active Lumina, you want the following: Breaking Attack, Cheater, Double Mark, Exposing Attack, First Strike, Greater Defenseless, Marking Break, Painted Power and Sniper. That's a total of 223 Lumina points required, but you can reduce the amount to 883 by equipping the Cheater Pictos instead of activating its Lumina effect. If you have leftover Lumina points, feel free to add any damage increase Lumina you want. When it comes to her attributes, max out Agility, Luck and whatever else you want depending on your weapon scaling. Now moving on to the main character of the team, Verso. For the weapon, you should use Chevalam because it's extremely powerful, especially for one-turn kill builds. When it comes to the 3 equipped Pictos, use whatever you want, just ensure he has as much critical rate as possible for increased damage. When it comes to skills, there are only 2 you really need, which are Phantom Stars for when you need AoE damage and Endbringer as your main one-shot skill. You should also equip Overload and Powerful as support skills in case the fight goes longer than expected. When it comes to his active Lumina, you want the following: At Death's Door, Augmented First Strike, Auto Death, Burn Affinity, Cheater, Confident Fighter, Energizing Start at least 1, First Offensive, Glass Cannon, Greater Powerful, Immaculate, Inverted Affinity, Painted Power, Roulette, SOS Power, Stay Marked, Stun Boost, Survivor, Teamwork and Warming Up. That's a total of 111 Lumina points. If you have leftover Lumina, feel free to add any other Pictos you want. When it comes to attributes, max out Might and then the 2 other attributes that your weapon is scaling with. Since we are using Chevalam, you should max out Might, Agility and Luck. Now let's get into the playstyle and skill rotation of this build. When the fight starts, a couple of things will happen. Sciel will die and resurrect, applying burn and maximum break bar to all enemies. Verso will put himself at 1 HP to take advantage of the at death's door damage increase. Verso will gain the greater powerful buff, resulting in a 40% damage increase. Verso will start off with the inverted debuff, while gaining a 50% damage increase. Now either your Maelle or Sciel will go first. If you start with Maelle, like I do, you have to use your basic attack on the enemy in order to break them and apply Mark plus Greater Defenseless. If there are 3 enemies, you have to use 1 free aim shot to break the third one. This will make enemies take a total of 110% more damage. Up next should be Sciel. You start off by using her Fortune's Fury skill on Verso in order to double his damage on the next turn. Now check the turn order bar at the top left, and if your Verso is too slow to go before the enemy, use Intervention on him, otherwise use Dark Cleansing on Maelle just to apply greater rush to your entire team if you have the Lethessan weapon equipped. Now when Verso's turn comes, use his Endbringer skill on the strongest enemy or boss, which will result in a one-shot. If there are 3 enemies of similar strength, use double Phantom Stars to wipe them all out in one turn. Just in case the fight goes longer or enemies don't die from one use of Endbringer, which can happen if you have very bad roulette RNG, just finish it off with Verso Sabotage Gradient attack, or do it next turn. Enemies should still be stunned, so they will not interrupt you. If you did everything right, you should be easily dealing 50+ million damage with your Endbringer skill, and in the best case over 120 million if you have roulette. Now, if you're in New Game Plus and still want to use this build, you can make a few adjustments to make a stronger version that requires more setup but deals way more damage. You can change the Chevalam weapon for Simoso, use all the combo attack and energizing attack Lumina on Verso, make him start first by putting first strike on him, and simply use your overload skill plus spamming free aim shots and basic attacks to get S rank on turn 1. Then, when Sciel takes her turn, use Fortune's Fury plus intervention on Verso to make him go again, and use Endbringer to one-shot the enemy and deal even more damage than before. What the Simoso weapon does is essentially doubles your damage by dealing an identical damage hit for each skill hit you are dealing, so it is the strongest weapon for Verso, but the reason I prefer using Chevalam is because Simoso requires a ton of setup to get to S rank on your first turn, while Chevalam lets you start with S rank. That would be it for this video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and if you'd like to see builds for other characters. I have other build videos coming up in the next few days, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.